WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
When it comes to technology and specifically artificial intelligence, Dennis knows that I am a huge advocate. And sometimes I think that maybe my enthusiasm isn't shared by everybody. Isn't that right, Dennis?
You are definitely a trendsetter with it compared to some business owners that are definitely not the trailblazer. Some of them are very receptive. Some are a little scared.
And along those lines, it makes sense for us to be able to take a more grown-up approach at this. And so today we have Peter Mayers, who is the founder and CEO of Growth 1776. He has really some insight. And when it comes to bringing a company up to be what its potential is and the idea of incorporating technology, Peter really had some insight that really made a lot of sense when it comes to incorporating not only just AI, but technology in general, Dennis. I think that this was really an interesting topic for us to tackle.
I think he lays it out very well and helps you see it visually in your head of kind of how it relates to, learning how to run a sports race and things. So I think there's some good analogies, and he lays out these steps. And I think you're going to enjoy this conversation that Vinny and I have with Peter. So listen in.
Dennis, as big a fan as I am with artificial intelligence, one of the things my clients have told me is that I don't know where to start, or it's just such a huge thing. I don't even know what to ask. It's overwhelming. And I think some of those approaches to AI have really been, it is drinking from a fire hose. There isn't much that we have as far as a guidebook nowadays.
No, and it's ever changing, and you can get overwhelmed with it. And as a small business, it can consume you and not help you get to what you need to do.
We wanted to bring in an expert and to kind of help give a little bit of information. We're entering into a new age, and we realize that AI is an amazing thing, but it also can be a little bit too much for a number of companies. Thanks for coming on the show today, by the way. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about the approach in companies in general. I know that when it comes to technologies, especially some of the smaller companies, they really aren't taking advantage of technology. And even if they are, they're probably not using it correctly. What's your thoughts on that?
There was an interesting analogy that I'd heard that when the internet first came around, and you had these .coms that were looking for someone with 15 years experience in the internet, which had only been around for a couple of years. There's something similar with AI, where everyone looks for these air quote experts, but AI really has only been available it's been around a while, depending on how you define it, but with ChatGPT, it is far more ubiquitous, and people want these experts, but we're all kind of learning as we go along. And small businesses, I think, are at a clear disadvantage because they generally don't have the bandwidth, the people. They don't have the capital or the spare money to make investments. And when they do have that capital or that time, their risk of making a bad decision proportionately has a significantly higher adverse impact if they make the wrong decision. So there's a bit of fear. There's a bit of lack of trust. Are these people telling me the truth? Are they really the ones that can help me? Or are they looking to meet some sales quota? So I think it's a combination of lots of factors that small businesses are struggling with to understand how they can take advantage of this technology and get ahead of their competition, not the Home Depots or the big box stores, but who they define as their competition.
So if I'm a company and I have, these raw metrics or some data that I've got, and, I really want to do something with that. And, just kind of throwing at this giant AI machine or coming up with figuring out how to do that. I'm not sure exactly where to go with that. Those are the type of things that I think people kind of run up against. And to your point, the experts out there, people who have been in AI for 20 years, what's your suggestion in terms of we know we need to do something. when it comes to incorporating some AI. But do you have like a first step or a way that we should be thinking about how we do that in technology in general with our businesses?
Yeah, it's a great question, Benny. And I kind of liken it. One of my partners coaches spent many, many years coaching track. And one of his key preaching principles was get the fundamentals down, do the ordinary extraordinarily well. And for a company that has a bunch of metrics, that have a bunch of data, that they don't know what to do with it, right? First, understand what that data is. And we have a phrase that we like to use. It's called "so what, now what." The data is the so what. I have these metrics, I have these dashboards, I have this information. Now what do I do with it? And we recommend companies that are starting to consider getting into data analytics and AI to not go to the end game and try to do a triple axel the first time you step out onto the ice rink. You want to get the basics down, and there are four pretty commonly accepted progressions or steps when you're thinking about data analytics. The first is descriptive, and that is just what happened. Financial statements are descriptive. How did I do? What were my sales? What's my cash balance at a particular point in time? The next step would be diagnostic. That's why did it happen? Oh, this customer stopped buying, or this customer bought more, or we got more customers than we thought. And you start to peel back the information. And that is honestly where data visualization starts to come into play, where you can see patterns. You can start to tease out some of these underlying causes or supposed causes as you interrogate the data a little bit to understand what happened and why it happened. Once you get good foundation there, you can step into predictive analytics. And that really answers the question, what's likely to happen? So it's more of a forecast. And that's where you can start to predict customer churn. You can start to predict demand on certain items and how the industry is changing and how consumer tastes might be changing based on those trends. And you're looking forward using AI, using data analytics to get a better crystal ball. There's no such thing as perfect 2020 when you're looking forward, but if you can get 2060 as opposed to 2080 or 2100, you're better off than your competition. And then the ultimate brass ring is the prescriptive analytics. And that builds on what happened, why did it happen, what will happen, and now what should I do about it? And one of the things that I have to say here is that we believe not all data are zeros and ones. And I think that is a common fact that is overlooked by a lot of businesses, be they large or be they small, where they think the answer lies solely in the data. But there's a human intelligence element to it, that you understand relationships, you understand things that you really can't relegate or break down into zeros and ones. And so even at the prescriptive, what should I do is not an AI chat GPT. It can give you ideas, but then you have to tailor it and you have to apply your own experience, insight, and intellect to really make that your own and to apply that HI or human intelligence element.
So it is a combination of and a trap we don't want to fall into of just relying solely on AI. We need to make sure we're incorporating a little bit of our experience and the knowledge in there mixed in with the AI.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that can come in. There's a new position or a new job role. It's called prompt engineering. And it's essentially these, I don't know whether they're engineers, what their background is, but they help train these AI models with prompts so that you're training the the AI to get better, more refined answers. And I think anyone that's used ChatGPT, if you ask a question, it's going to come back with an answer that's going to lead to a question that's going to come back to an answer. And it's an iterative process that the better questions you ask, it's a little bit like the Papa John's pizza chain, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Well, better questions, better feedback, better questions, better feedback, better insights, better decisions, better outcomes.
And Peter, kind of going back to the track coach analogy. I mean, again, that descriptive and diagnostic, that's kind of the basics, starting out with it.
Yeah,
What I see, a lot of them want to jump to that predictive, but they don't do the basics well. And that's part of the challenge, is that you've got to be able to do those basic steps or be able to run properly before you can really run the big race.
exactly. Because what are you making predictions on? Right?
Exactly.
If you don't understand what happened, if you don't understand why it happened, then the diagnostics or the data analytics turn into a black box that you have complete faith is going to understand everything about the situation, that you don't understand everything about the situation. How could it possibly?
And I think that's why a lot of businesses feel like a lot of these software sales guys are snake oil. They're selling snake oil because they're selling the predictive stuff, but you're not even doing steps 1 and 2 really, really well. But they don't bother to tell you you've got to get steps 1 and 2 down before you jump to step 3 and 4.
Exactly. And there's a great analogy. I think it's a great analogy because I use it. Doesn't make it great, but it's when we work with companies, and I've had this experience in a prior life when I was in public accounting, where it would be the proverbial dashboard, and you almost walk into a nuclear reactor and they've got these huge screens with all this data showing and trends, and you're overwhelmed. And I use the analogy of when you walk on a plane and you look left or wherever the cockpit is, and you see all these dials and levers and knobs, and it's a bit unnerving. How can anyone manage in that environment? And then you think, well, this pilot has been trained. They've been through this. They've done all of the required training, understanding, cause effect. If I do this, then that. But if you think about it from a company perspective, they don't have that kind of training or background. And a lot of these technology companies come in and give them a cockpit that is, well, I don't know how to fly this. When I have 15 red things and the people say, yeah, don't worry about it, that's always red, that's not a good dashboard. If something is red, you should be dropping everything and running to the source of the problem and trying to understand it.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
when we think about this in general, and maybe this isn't just simply an AI question, and maybe it is, maybe it's a technology question. What's a realistic expectation that we should set ourselves up for any type of improvement, whether it be a process or being able to understand things? I think, and going back to the idea that this is a panacea, that suddenly my revenues are going to just quadruple overnight because I've incorporated AI. What's a realistic expectation we should have for our businesses, and what we should be seeing, and what are those metrics?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't have an answer because it's largely situational. But I would say that if the smaller business, the SMB, is hesitant because it's a big chunk of money, and they will, the fear of, I didn't make the right decision, or I bet on the wrong technology, or I bet on the wrong consultant or advisor, or whatever you want to call it, make small bets, right? You don't need to bet the farm, so to speak. And if you want to wade into AI or RPA or any type of automation, take a process that is, if it goes sideways or wrong, it's not a below the waterline mistake. It's not going to sink the ship. You're going to learn from it. You're going to understand how to convey what you're looking for. Because frankly, one of the in my experience, the biggest stumbling block, or a big stumbling block for these companies engaging an advisor or a technology company, is an imbalance in knowledge. So the company doesn't know even how to spec out what a statement of work would look like and what an outcome might be. Whereas the accounting firm or tech firm, they've done this hundreds of times. They have knowledge that is, they're going to deliver something that they can say, hey, we delivered against the SOW, whether it actually met the purpose or intention of what that client or that company was looking for is secondary. They've got a professional responsibility to deliver what they did. The company knows that, so they're not quite sure, well, is the statement of work really going to deliver what I need, as opposed to delivering what you think I need. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, and we see it all the time where, as we work with clients, they want to solve world hunger, and it's like, okay, it's an elephant, but you can't eat the whole elephant. To your point, start with something small, get a win, make sure you like this software, make sure you like the consultant that you're going to be working with, make sure they like you. I mean, there's a lot. You're going to be together with each other for quite a while
Exactly.
if done correctly.
Yeah, you're right.
And instead of spending $60,000, spend $6,000 and fix something fairly simple. And to Peter's point, if it falls apart, okay, it's a learning experience. But again, you can learn from those failures of, okay, what caused it to fail? It was, hey, we didn't have the right team put together, or we didn't have the right testing process, or whatever it
Yeah.
is as you go through there. But you're out 6,000. You're not out $60,000 for a small organization.
Right. And I don't think it takes, for a small organization, I don't think it takes 30, 50, 60, $100,000 to have a meaningful impact. It's, college is really expensive. Elementary school is free. Start with elementary school. And to your point, Dennis, $3, $6, $5, $10,000 to understand what this looks like, how it works, realize the benefit from it, and perhaps harvest take some of those improvements, but then reinvest some of those efficiencies, some of those savings in expanding and accelerating your progress.
So, Peter, if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm running a business and trying to think, yeah, I definitely want to do this. I'm overwhelmed. So I've kind of been sitting on the sidelines for a little bit. I know I need some help. I need a partner to be able to kind of bring me through this. What are some attributes or some key indicators, or where should we be looking for in partnering up with a company to help me navigate through this? Do you have any suggestions or thoughts in terms of what would that look like?
My accounting brethren are going to kill me, because I would say part of the one thing I would look for in a partner or provider is, have they done this within a company themselves, or are they just the theoretical, or we've done this with 30 other companies and you're number 31 and I know how to put in this? Well, it could be a square peg in a round hole. And so, do they understand the disruption to the company? Because there will be some disruption. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be managed. Do they have the change management in place so that the different processes can stick? One of the great analogies that I read many, many years ago around change management is, if you think about a production, a play on Broadway, and it's a musical, and you have costumes and you have the band and you have people that can sing. And then that same theater says, well, we're going to put on a drama. Well, you need different costumes. You need different talent. You need different, scenery. You need different tools. And to just then take that first cast and say, now we're going to do drama, they're going to need training. They're going to need to forget what they used to do and now adopt some of these new practices, these new ways of doing business, the new expectations that you don't sing anymore, you act, right? And I think that someone that understands what it really takes to implement this, as opposed to the sterile we're going to give it to you, and we've delivered on our statement of work, is going to help that company, because if the company hasn't gone through this before, they're going to need a lot more hand-holding, a lot more guidance, and a lot more of a sounding board to help them understand what might be coming down the pike.
The other thing I would say, Benny, thinking through it as we've worked with them, is ask for referrals, and don't just ask did they do good work. It's talk to those companies that they've done work for before, and learn. Okay, what were some things that you as the client did that helped make the process go well? What were things that you wish you could have done better? Because a lot of times it's not the contractors. It's the fact that, to Peter's point, you're busy doing a full-time job, and then you're going to have to do testing. You're going to have to be engaged and give feedback. And if you don't give feedback early on and you wait till the very end, and then all of a sudden tell them that, oh, there's something wrong here, but it was at step 1 and you're at step 30, that could impact that whole thing that they've just built. And so it's talking through that and making sure, and again, techie people don't always understand the language of a business person. And so making sure that when whatever you're asking for, that you give them examples or help them understand what you're trying to get to. Because again, there's a good chance some of these people that are doing the program are not U.S. citizens. They're somewhere else around the world that may not be even speaking the same language, but that's programming this thing or putting it together to do whatever it's going to do for you. So it's that dialogue. And I still love Peter's point. Start small. It just amazes me that people go in and they want to eat the whole elephant. It's like, do it small, get your feet wet. And I love the 4 steps. If you're not doing steps 1 and 2, that descriptive and diagnostics, well, don't worry about jumping to 3 and 4, because you can, but you're just going to waste a lot of money.
Peter, this is the topic near and dear to both Dennis and myself, is that we love this topic. And I think this has been a nice approach, but I know that there's going to be some questions out there for some folks who maybe have something specific to their business and they want to talk to you. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
The best way would be via email, and my email address is Peter M. So M as in Mary, Peter M at G76.AI.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it. This is a topic that's just going to continue to evolve and grow. So we're going to have you come back at a later date. I know we'll have more stuff to talk about back then.
I look forward to it. That'd be a lot of fun.
Thanks again. Well, Dennis, that's another podcast in the can. I know that a lot of you all want to know how to get in touch with us. Dennis, what's the best way for folks to be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, email's by far the best for me. It's Dennis J, so DENNISJ at worksolution.com, and that's WORX solution, no S at the end, so solution.com. Benny, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Get a hold of me. My email address is benny@velocitytechnology.group. That's BENNY at velocitytechnology.group. Also, for me and Dennis, you can find us on LinkedIn. Look for us on LinkedIn. Our Work From Home with Two Guys is on LinkedIn. And we also have a website, wfh2guys.com. Look us up. You'll find all the past episodes and some little bits of information that maybe we don't get a chance to talk to on the podcast. We put it out there too as well.
And definitely share us with your friends and people in your network.
Absolutely. Let us know what we can do to make this podcast your podcast. Give us some ideas. If you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.